Introduction to Ansible, a simple way to automate apps and your IT infrastructure. So a little bit about me. My name is Anant. I am 26 years old. I'm a platform engineer for a non-corporation. I've been with the company for about 2.5 years now, and I currently live and work in Washington, D.C. So just a quick overview of this webinar. Kind of just going to go over what Ansible is, what it's used for, what it can do. I'll go over some of the use cases where Ansible kind of falls in. And then afterwards, I'll begin a demo of us kind of setting up Ansible, and we're going to be using AWS as our cloud provider. This demo is kind of going to be in two parts. This first half in this webinar, again, it'll be more of the setup, so we can just see how we're going to be, using our environment, and then in a later webinar scheduled either next month or so, that's when I'll kind of go over the rest once I have my playbook fully mapped out. So, without further ado, let's get into the webinar. So, what is Ansible? Ansible is an open source automation tool or platform used for IT tasks such as configuration management, application deployment, intra-service orchestration, and provisioning. In the world today, there's a high demand for automated processes in an effort to make information and resources easier and faster to access. IT environments have become quite complex and often prove to be tedious to scale manually. Automation simplifies convoluted tasks, not just making developers' jobs more manageable, but allowing them to focus attention on other tasks that add value to an organization or business. In other words, it frees up bandwidth and increases efficiency. And Ansible is rapidly rising to the top of the world in terms of automation tools. Now let's take a look at some of the reasons for Ansible's popularity. So how does Ansible work? Designed for multi-tier deployments, Ansible multi-tier deployments since day one. Ansible models your IT infrastructure by describing how all of your systems interrelate rather than just managing one system at a time. Its no-use agents and no additional custom security infrastructure is so easy to deploy, and most importantly, it uses a very simple language that allows you to describe your automation jobs in a way that approaches plain English. So we first have the user who writes the Ansible playbooks. Playbooks are one of the core features of Ansible and tell Ansible what to execute. They're like the to-do list for Ansible that contains the list of tasks. So playlists are written in YAML, which stands for yet another markup language, and these are going to invoke Ansible modules in things called tasks, which then get executed sequentially in order from top to bottom. These modules are essentially executable bits of code that are pushed out to your target machines. However, we don't need to understand the underlying code that these modules, code of these modules to get them to work. We just need to be able to pass the correct arguments to our playbooks. These modules are going to be used to act against our inventory, which consists of hosts and groups. So in this example, we have two groups, one in the web and one host in the DB. But they can always be listed by a host name or an IP address. That inventory can come from just about anywhere, since Ansible plays nice with a bunch of different cloud providers. The only thing that is crucial is that we have a host to manage, because without one, you cannot execute anything. Once we have that, we can push out the playbook that uses the modules that acts against our inventory. So it all kind of comes back to that to the inventory that we're managing. There are also various Python APIs that Ansible users can utilize for extending Ansible's connection types. So we also have plugin supports for callback plugins, filler, and other lookup type use cases. So if any of these plugin options kind of caught your interest, be sure to check out docs.ansible.com for more information. And now let's take a look at Ansible's features. Ansible also provides reliability, consistency, and scalability to your IT infrastructure. You can automate configurations of databases, storage, networks, firewalls using Ansible. It makes sure that all of your necessary packages and other software are consistent on the server to run the application. Now let's take a look at these features. Number one, Ansible is agentless, which means there are no kinds of software or agent managing the node like other solutions such as Puppet or Chef. Number two, is built on top of Python, which is a fast and one of the most robust programming languages in today's world. Three, Ansible uses a very simple passwordless network authentication protocol, which is secure. So your only responsibility is to copy your key to the client. Four, Ansible uses push architecture, meaning you only have to commit necessary information. All you have to do is write down the configurations and playbooks and push them all at once to the nodes. Imagine having to push the changes to thousands of servers in minutes. With this feature, that doesn't sound like such a drag. And finally, very little setup and configuration is needed to get Ansible up and running. So now we'll finally go over a few use cases to see how Ansible unites the development cycle workflow into a single agentless automation platform or experience. So one, provisioning. Your apps have to live somewhere. If you're spinning up servers or VMs or creating virtual cloud instances from templates, Ansible and Red Hat Ansible Tower can help streamline that process. Two, configuration management. Centralizing configuration, file management, and deployment is a common use case for Ansible, and it's how many power users are first introduced to Ansible, to the Ansible automation platform. Three, application deployment. When you define your application with Ansible and manage the deployment with Ansible Tower, teams are able to effectively manage the entire application lifecycle from development to production. Four, continuous delivery. Creating a CI/CD pipeline requires buy-in from numerous teams. You can't all do it without a simple automation platform that everyone in your organization can use. Ansible Playbooks keeps your applications properly deployed and managed throughout their entire lifecycle. Five, secure automation. When you define your security policy in Ansible, scanning and remediation of site-wide security policy can be integrated into other automated processes, and instead of being an afterthought, it will be integral in everything that is deployed. And finally, six, orchestration. Configurations alone don't define your environment. You need to define how multiple configurations interact and ensure that the disparate pieces can be managed as a whole. Out of complexity and chaos, Ansible helps to bring order. Over here, we just have some of the integrations that Ansible offers. Again, this is just like a small bit. It integrates with a whole host of other products and services, but obviously this should just give you a taste of the kind of power and other services Ansible can communicate with. And now we are free to get into the demo of how we're going to set up our environment. So like I mentioned before, we are going to be working with AWS as our cloud provider. Actually, I did see a question here. Okay, that's just right. So yeah, like I mentioned before, we're going to be using AWS, and to set up our environment, we're going to be pretty much following three steps. First, we're going to be creating two different instances and security groups on AWS. Once we have those instances up, we're going to install some prerequisites on those instances. Then we're going to configure SSH access from our main node to our secondary node. And then finally, we're going to allow Ansible to communicate between the main node and the secondary node. Okay, so what we're going to do here, launch. All right, let's see, we're going to come down here, pick Ubuntu. T2 micro, it's perfect. Here we're going to make sure we have two instances. Again, we're going to have a main and a secondary. We can actually skip down here to configure security groups. Here we're going to add a new rule where we're going to be allowing all types of traffic. Yeah, that's great. Source is going to be anywhere And that looks good. So we're going to go review. Once we've kind of looked over, make sure that everything seems in order. You can then launch. And then it's going to ask you to kind of create a key pair. This is what you're going to be using to SSH into your instance. So webinar, we're just going to create, yeah. I don't think I've used this name yet, but yeah, we'll just use that. Make sure to download your key pair. Otherwise, you're going to have to kind of go back and look for that key to SSH into your instance. And finally, we will launch our instances. They're now launching. It's great to hear. So now we can kind of go back to the dashboard, wait for those to spin up, and then we can get into the nitty-gritty of things. Instances. Okay, looks like these are the two, so we can just go ahead and this one, webinar 1. Actually, just say main, because we're going to be main and secondary. Perfect. And then you'll go here first of all and grab this IP address, and then we're going to be using MOVA to connect to our instance. If you remember the last time when I did the Terraform demo, we were using the EC2 user, but obviously since we're using a different instance, Ubuntu, the username is actually Ubuntu. I'm gonna come here to this time and grab private key. Everything looks good over there. Test this out, authenticating, and bam, we're connected. Sweet. Now we're gonna connect to secondary. Come back here, grab the IP address. Username Ubuntu. Make sure to grab our private key. Everything looks good. Authenticating, awesome. Just kind of make that a little bit bigger. Get rid of this window. All right, sweet. And now we're finally ready to start setting up our environment. All right, so first we need to do is to pre-install a bunch of prerequisites on our instances. Just a little heads up, on the main node, that is where we're going to be installing Ansible. The secondary node does not get an Ansible install. Instead, that one's going to get Python, which is going to be interpreting and collaborating with the main node. So first off, we're going to run off the sudo pt install software properties. Install properties over here. Awesome. Usually when you spin up a new install, it already has it, but just to make sure, we would like to run that command again. Next, we're going to be getting the Ansible install files. Sorry. Yeah, missing colon there. Ansible. Oh yeah, apologies for that. I forgot something right here. You're good to go. Press enter over there, and now that's going to go ahead and install. While that's going on, we'll kind of go back to our secondary node, and we'll make sure that Python is installed. So, so we're just running this just to make sure everything's updated. Sweet. And then we shall install Python. Continue. Yes. Awesome. You can go back here. Seems like everything was successful installing Ansible. Oh no, this was just to get the directory actually. So next we need to run a update. Awesome. And then finally we're actually going to install Ansible. Continue. Yes, I do. Pop back over to check on the secondary node, and it seems everything was successful over here. Awesome. So now we just gotta wait. Great. And that should be it. And now we should have Ansible installed on the main node and with Python on the secondary node. So the next step is to configure our SSH access from our main to secondary. And that's because we want to make sure that the two nodes are communicating with each other. Before we do that, we can even just try SSHing. Perfect, yeah. We're just going to try SSHing to our secondary node and just seeing what happens. Are you sure you want to continue? Yes, I am. And then, of course, it's going to tell us permission deny. That's because when we first created the instances on AWS, we made sure that you needed the key pair to connect to our nodes. But if you notice, the key pair is on my local machine and not on this virtual machine that we spun up. So now we have to kind of go in, create a U-key from main, add that key to authorized keys on secondary, and then we're able to communicate between the two. So in order to do that, you need to just make sure I'm on main. SSH. And I can just ls here. So yeah, normally we would only have just authorized keys. Obviously, this is where you'd be declaring to allow access for other nodes. The reason why we have known hosts is because we already tried to SSH. So now it's kind of installed that attempt there. So what we need to do here is then create a key. Let's just do that through SSH keygen. And we can just kind of press enter throughout all these. It's got all that. That's perfect. Just check to see. And yeah, all right. So the file that we have is there. And then we are going to want to copy that file. SSH rsa.hub. Let's see here. So we're going to want to copy that over, and then we'll go back to our secondary. Within secondary, so again, we'll cd.ssh, and then what is the command? And sudo nano authorized keys. Gonna go down here. We'll paste that down. We'll save it. Say yes. And that should be good to go. So now that we saved the key, we can come back here and try the SSH again to see if we're successful. Just make sure. Okay, this is the one. Maybe I didn't copy down the SSH key properly. Let's see. Do this again. Go back to secondary. Let's see, where should I start? P7. Right there. Apologies, I just need to do this real quick. I don't think it's copying the right key. Okay, let's see. Get rid of this key, and we'll try again. Oh, it's not what I meant to do. I'll say no there. Open up this file again. Yes, I want to continue. I want to get rid of this key. Let's try that. Save, yes. That should be good. Now, is this going to work for us? Why are you successful? Why? I'll try one more time, getting the key. If this does not work, I know I have a few instances that I had set up beforehand, and hopefully those should work for us. Yes. Okay. Actually, that looks kind of good, maybe. Please. Oh, there we go. Awesome. Terribly sorry about that. Thank you very much for kind of working me, sitting with me and working me through that. But now we have finally SSH'd into there, and that's pretty much just confirming that we can now communicate from our main to our secondary node. Of course, it'll kind of tell us right there. This is the IP address of the secondary node. If we do wish to exit or to close this connection, all we have to do is just type exit, and again, it will just tell us that connection to this node has been stopped. So that's great. So now all that is left to do is to allow Ansible from the main node to connect to the secondary node. We need to make sure that Ansible knows the IP address of the server we're trying to establish a connection between, and do so by editing a file on the main node. So first off, need to toss in this command. etc. And then pretty much we're going to scroll all the way down here. And how we're going to do it is we're going to create a group of IP addresses essentially. So we're going to use the square brackets, and we'll just call this group production. Underneath production is where we're actually going to be defining this IP. So just to keep the name conventions linear, we're going to go secondary Ansible underscore SSH underscore hosts, and it's equal to just go back here, copy that. Oh wait, I remember it. Yep, there we go. Just going to try to make secondary space Ansible underscore SSH underscore host, host. Awesome, should be good to go. Bang. And now to finally test to make sure that Ansible is able to connect between the two, we can run this command, which is Ansible -m ping, and we called it secondary. So if we run this, we should get voila, which is the desired expected. So yep, it went through, it found secondary, which we just added to host. It says that was a success. So now we've confirmed that Ansible is able to communicate, Ansible in main is able to communicate to our secondary node. And this is kind of where I'm going to be cutting off with the demo for today. Again, this is just a setup. And then once I work through getting my demo playbook up and running, because I'm going to build that from scratch, I'll be able to demo that. I just also wanted to leave you with a few more commands that you can also run using Ansible. Instead of ping secondary, highlighting one, you can also say ping all. This is for if you have declared, a bunch of different IP addresses. And then usually that'll also come back to list of, everything that's ping. Or if you remember when we were declaring the host, I had said that we're going to declare this group within it. So that group, we called it production. So when I do that, it should also bring back secondary, which is in that production. So yeah, it really gives you the freedom to kind of, declare the IP addresses and the nodes that you wish. And yeah, like I said, that's going to do it for this demo. And I'll go back for the closing remarks of my webinar. There she is. Awesome. And then we'll kind of go here. So to wrap up, why should you use Ansible? Number one, it's free. Ansible is an open source tool that's available to users for free. Two, it's simple. Most users might worry about how Ansible works, but in reality, the setup process as well as the use is quite easy. The use of Ansible software requires exceptional skills in coding. Three, it's efficient. Ansible is an efficient software. It requires no additional software for installation, but offers room for application resources on the server of the user. Four, it's powerful. Ansible is a powerful tool that helps users to model high complex workflows of the IT industry efficiently. 5, it's agentless. The main benefit of using Ansible is that it's agentless. Without the use of any additional software, the clients can easily automate their systems. 6, it's flexible. Irrespective of where the software is deployed, it allows users to orchestrate the whole environment of the application. 7, extensible. Depending on the networking and automation needs of the users, Ansible can easily offer extensions. I do remember last time I kind of gave a webinar with Terraform, I was asked a question to see the differences between Ansible and Terraform. There are a few differences in the sense that where one of the applications, Ansible, is a apologies, one second. Looking up something here. Where is it? Sorry about that. Oh, apologies. Okay, we'll kind of go back here. So like some of the main differences include that Ansible is a configuration management tool, whereas Terraform itself is an orchestration tool. Ansible provides support for mutable infrastructure, aka infrastructure that can change once it's been created, whereas Terraform does not. Terraform usually kind of stays the same unless you destroy, then build it back up. Ansible follows a procedural language, whereas Terraform is declarative. Ansible provides complete support for packaging and templating. Terraform provides partial support. Ansible does not have any lifecycle management, whereas Terraform is heavily dependent on lifecycle management. But in the same sense, a lot of these tools are both similar in the sense, they're open source, they're easy to use, easy to set up. They do offer management and scheduling services. Both are scale. You can scale with both tools. I think Ansible does have the upper hand. It's just easier to scale than Terraform. Ansible, on the whole, has a better GUI system, but it's not that advanced. Only because Terraform. Its GUI systems are provided from third parties. HashiCorp does not provide a GUI like that. But there is no clear quote unquote winner between the two. It just depends on your business needs. But yeah, I just wanted to address that because I do remember someone had asked that question last time and I wasn't able to provide the information. But there's a lot more differences and more in-depth analysis between the two tools. So if you're interested in either Ansible or Terraform, be sure to do your research because, again, they overlap in a lot of areas, but each is better suited for a particular use case. And with that, that comes to the end of my webinar. If you like what you saw or heard today, please do reach out. We're always looking forward to meeting and collaborating with new people, and yeah, we're always available to talk and collaborate. And with that, does anyone have any questions about Ansible or just Anant in general? I think I saw something in the chat earlier. There it is. It requires Python. I'm not seeing anything else come up in the chat.
Hey, I have a question. This is John Doe. Can you guys hear me?
Hi, John. Yes, I can hear you.
I have a question. It's about the hosts you provided in the inventory file. Today, the modern architecture architectures, they're all in the cloud, they're all flexible, and servers are coming and going. They get killed, they get replaced, they die, and usually, if the architecture is well handled, this coming and going happens behind the scenes without any manual intervention, without human intervention. How is Ansible handling those servers? How does Ansible know what server am I dealing with? What's the IP of that server?
Gotcha. That's a good question. Unfortunately, I don't have the answer to that just because this is my first time kind of really getting into Ansible. And I'm still kind of working into setting up at least my playbook for the second half of this demo. Hopefully I will have the answer to that question in the future, and hopefully I'll be able to, if not demo the situation you just described. But yeah, sorry, unfortunately I just don't have
No worries, no worries.
the answer to satisfy your question.
Sure, no problem.
Are there any other questions? Well, with that, I think I'm going to bring my webinar to a close. I'd like to say thank you very much for tuning in today. And also, again, thank you very much for, sitting there as I was working through my issues of trying to make sure my connection was going through between the main and secondary nodes. Again, please look out for a future webinar where hopefully I'll be able to get my playbook up and running. I'll be able to actually demo, a playbook in action. Until then, take care, and I'll see you next time.